can you explain who you are and your credentials and why you're saying the things you're saying?
Well, first of all, I'm an educator. I was born in Scotland, so I can't be president of the United States.
Well, you can nowadays.
It would appear. Yeah, precedent has been set. Eh? So what am I doing? I've been going around the country speaking about the Muslim takeover of the nation, what their intent is, how they bought and paid for the president of the United States, the Saudis, that is, his history, what he's done, how he's usurped the office itself, what the Democrats are doing that is totally unsettling and in violation of their oath to protect America against all enemies, whether they be domestic or foreign. And they're acting very much as domestic enemies of the state. And as a result, that would be enemies of you and I. So I feel it's my responsibility as a Christian, first of all, because that's what I am. And secondly, so I have my commitment to God. And secondarily, is the protection of the Republic itself. I took an oath many years ago, 45 years ago, actually, when I was 18. And in that oath, I was able to, put my hand on a Bible and swear that I would, in fact, seriously protect America. And I've attempted to do that until October of this year when I was summarily dismissed by the Obama administration. But I was covert in my duties, took them seriously, worked in South America, worked in China mostly, but also in Canada. And we can get into those kind of details if you want. Otherwise, just know this, I'm a patriot and a Christian, and I take it totally seriously when someone tries to usurp the Republic itself.
Sure. So you said you worked for the Obama administration for a while?
Apparently.
Okay. And they didn't like, you weren't willing to go along with their agenda, so they kicked you out. Is that what happened?
Well, actually what happened was in January 21st of 2013, I exposed the fact that senior officers of the military were being asked a litmus test question. And the question was, if you were ordered to, by even the President of the United States, if you were ordered to shoot Americans who would not allow you to confiscate their arms, would you do it? And of course, that is a total breach of the Constitution. And but they were being asked that question. As a result, those who said, "Well, no, we'll obey the Constitution," they were being drummed out of their positions. So we lost generals and admirals, and then went down into colonels, and now we have 550 majors have been let go. But that's why I was canned, as it were, because I brought that forward.
And like General Petraeus, it was my guess that's probably what happened with him. Is that what you're hearing?
That's my understanding, yes. He was one of the victims of that.
And how come he just doesn't speak out about it, or others?
The fear has usually to do with not just personal protection, but with family. And you know full well what happened to the Chief Justice of the United States and how he changed his view on Obamacare. Well, it had to do with the fact that he'd adopted 2 Irish children illegally, and that was held against him, and he changed what he was going to do.
I see. Okay. There is a lot of information you have, and so I have a lot of things I'm curious about and questions I might want to ask you, but you have the floor. Why don't you say what's on your mind and what you think is the most important?
Well, the most important part is the man himself has never been qualified to be president of the United States. But the collusion and the suborning of justice and the rule of law by people like Nancy Pelosi have produced, things, inordinate things that we wouldn't have expected to see happen. For example, it used to be that if a Republican or a Democrat candidate was put forward, they guaranteed that their candidate met all of the qualifications necessary to be the President of the United States, except in the instance when that documentation was brought forward by Ms. Pelosi. What she had produced was a totally different document, and all it said was that he was their candidate, not that he met any qualifications. That should have been a hint and an alarm to everybody that something was afoot.
Yeah, okay. And this has been a rumor for a while, and then if you even consider that that might be true, you get called and labeled a truther. which there's nothing wrong with being truthful, but instead of addressing the problems and the issues, they'll just resort to name calling. I mean, that's a sure sign that there's some guilt there.
Well, of course, but you know, when you bring the documentation, ask them to produce the document signed by Pelosi, and you'll see that every other candidate up until that point in time signed basically a document ascertaining as to whether they were or were not capable of being, as the rule of law points out, there are qualifications. Do you meet the qualifications? You certified, yes, those qualifications were met. But in this case, they totally skirted that, of course, knowing full well that they couldn't say that without that being perjury.
Right, okay. What's on my mind now, and a lot of people's mind, is ISIS. What can you say about that in regards to the American government right now?
It's totally the American government's fault. It was funded by, it was created by, it has been aided and abetted by this administration especially. So whether you call, whether you say there's a group called ISIS, there's a group called Al-Qaeda, or there's other groups, these groups have all had benefit at the largesse of government, moving back into, 2 or 3 or 4 administrations prior to this one.
What I see in the Middle East is I see this thing happening in Egypt where the Obama administration supported the Muslim Brotherhood, who was crucifying and beheaded Christians. And then he goes to Syria and blames everything on Assad. I don't know a whole lot about Assad. I've been told he's really bad. But I've also been told by, I've heard from Christians there on the ground that actually live in Syria that he's actually decent to Christians. He's not so much as an Islamic that he's willing to do anything with Christians. He just lets them live. Yet then this group that the administration was arming was started, beheading Christians, and then they turned into ISIS. And then Libya. Then there's arms in Libya that the Obama administration gave to Al-Qaeda. I thought Al-Qaeda was our enemy. Can you put all this together and then what you see happening on the border? Because I think that there's a connection.
Oh, there is absolutely a connection. Well, if you look at the pattern of behavior here, who is being supported? It's always the Islamist religious zealot who gets the support. The political Islamist, Assad and others who've been deposed, like, for example, I just went blank. The fellow on the top end of Africa, next to Morocco, what was his name?
Gaddafi.
Gaddafi, yeah, Omar Gaddafi. He was a political Islamist, but he allowed Christians to live in peace and harmony.
Not anymore.
And there's the difference. The jihadist wants everyone to die. They want everyone to be converted to Islam, and if not, you cut off the head. That's their stay. So what we have is anyone who is in the least a moderate, if you want to call it a moderate politically, because when it gets down to it, you read the book, you are an Islamist, you are a Muslim, that means you believe everything that's written there, which means if the infidel will not convert, then you cut off their head. It's that simple. But the political world offers and needs something different to make things work. So, but anyone who comes in as a political moderate, of course, is a target. And the target, the sad thing is, when you see the President of the United States playing into the hands of the extreme Islamist versus the politically moderate Islamist who can be worked with. Okay. Even though they may be a bad dude like Assad, because he has done some horrible things.